Hello, for those of you joining us for the world building session. I am glad that you decided to stick around. I do need to edit the titles. This is world building. Early timeline, I think is what this is going to be. And this is now just chatting. Done. And I think I'm also going to say on the not Discord, switching to world building now. Okay. So, for those of you just joining us for the first time, this is the world building segment of the stream where we are basically trying to build our own setting. And for that, I've been using Worldographer, which is this program you can see here. And we've established this general landmass as being the place where we want to start things off. This is just one continent. There are going to be more of them around the world, but I want to focus on this so that we can get some serious detail. This is probably roughly the size of Europe, and this is going to be the fantasy Europe for this game. The general ideas are this little crater here that you can see. That probably won't actually be in the game itself, but that is where a magical explosion happened. Kind of like Ambernar, but not actually taken from that. I had this idea way before I started playing Ambernar itself. And basically what that was is the death of one of the gods. And last session we talked about who that god was and why they were killed and how. And as it turns out, this was well, cycle back a little bit. The source of godly power is through worship. They encourage worshippers to worship them. That worship is then basically converted into power, and that basically determines their position and abilities on the pantheon. One of the gods realized, well, mortals can worship, but what about gods? What if I just fancy myself so much that I begin just strapping all of the magical abilities, or magical powers that come from this world onto myself and become uber god? And all the other gods were like, nah, that's a terrible idea. Please don't do this. And then he went and did it, so they killed him. And there was a big explosion as his magic basically was returned to the world with some force. And ended up with this inland sea, which is roughly in temperate terms like the Baltic. Then there are a couple of features which are important as part of this. We have the Shield Mountain here, which is why this part of the land was not immediately destroyed, and behind the shield is a very large forest. That forest is kind of like the Feywild. A lot of the magical energy is settled in the Feywild and kind of supercharged many of the creatures there. The Shield Mountains are where the gnomes are from. They went underground, they retreated underground, and basically, not exactly hibernated, but bunkered down during the worst parts of the fallout from the magical explosion. And as part of that, they absorbed a lot of the latent magical energies that were around them, making them highly resistant to magic, and that's where the gnomish magic resistance comes from. A lot of the races we're talking about here are going to be the D&D races. There are going to be some differences, which we might tweak for like sub-races, but generally I want to have as close race relation or race abilities to D&D. We just have different ways of explaining why it happens. So those are the gnomes. Then in the forest behind, like I said, is kind of like the Feywild. That is where the forest gnomes came from, the rock gnomes obviously in the mountains, and the wood elves. Then next tier around it we have the humans. The humans were part of a single race, and this was the precursor to the gnomes, the humans and the elves, which were basically genies. With the intensity of this magical explosion, a lot of that magic was burned out of them, and that's basically what allowed them to survive. And as a result, the humans have very little latent magic. They can learn to do magic. There are a couple of them which might have weird bloodlines going on, sorcerers, which allows them to still do some, but the race themselves are completely magically inert. They don't have it. And then just outside of that circle, we have the elves. And the elves were the ones who were left with a little bit of magical power, though most of it was burned away from them with the source of that explosion. So the genies are basically the precursors. Those precursors then underwent several levels of forced evolution thanks to the magical fallout, becoming the gnomes, the humans, and the elves. And then down here in the south, we have the Dwarven homelands. The dwarves come from these two mountain chains, and I know we established an origin from them. I think they came from the east? Something like that. I've actually kind of forgotten what the dwarves were, what their deal is. But the dwarves are down here. They are not related to the genies. They have completely different setup. And the dwarves are important because a lot of the trade that goes north-south goes via the Dwarven realms, particularly the trade cities on this coast down here. The dwarves are giant descendants, right, but I don't remember how they descended from the giants. I'm not actually sure we decided that. And they have this giant desert in the way. This desert is basically a rain shadow, so a lot of the water which is picked up, particularly from the inland sea, deposits the rain in front of it, hence the big marshes in front, and then the desert behind. And that did make travel here a little bit more difficult, except for the fact that there is this. This is a glacier in the middle of the desert. How the hell does that work? Well, there's an ancient white dragon that lives in this glacier. It hibernates pretty much all the time, but because of the nature of ancient dragons, they can change the environment around them, and that means that there's a glacier here. That glacier feeds what is called the Ice Oasis, and there is a Dwarven settlement here. So that Dwarven settlement basically acts as a midpoint for caravans traversing through the desert, going through here to the southern corridor. And that's important because a lot of the trade coming from the east comes through here, or comes into a Dwarven city, which I think we established here. So it goes here, out, and then down. It's like Kilimanjaro. If Kilimanjaro had a giant ancient ice dragon living under it, then yes. Next bay, I thought it was over here, but then... Well, I guess this is moving that way. Well, this isn't as important. Regardless, there is a lot of trade coming from the east. This is basically the Silk Road. And in fact, if we go to the right thing... Let's see if I can remember where I saved this. This was... Dur and Dur. Primescence. Dwarven Realms? Yes, Dwarven Realms. And this was laying that out. So you can see the Silk Road comes from here. It goes down into the bay, so you're right, there was a city there. Into the Dwarven homelands, and then the other dwarves. And propagates out from there. So this is actually one of the major trade hubs as well, because that's the junction from everything going east, then either south or north. And then on the neck, we have trolls on either side. So we have this, which is a big swamp, and then this, which is a big marsh. Controlled by trolls, so nothing can really get through these sides, which is why you have to go through the desert. It's much safer. So there you go. At the end of the last session, Mordred foolishly asked what the name of the self-worshipping god for the other god's true death, and it was Mordeus, which literally means god death. Mord is death, and Deus is god. Mordeus, rather, is the name of the god that exploded. And that is also the name of the corrupt magic. So magic in this world is pretty common as a resource. Magic is a material thing that you can find. It's a fine dust that coats pretty much everything. However, Mordeus, if it comes in contact with magic, starts to corrupt it. And the nature of Mordeus is it's kind of like a magnet. It will attract all the magic in the area and start corrupting it as a whole. And it is very, very rapidly decaying. It's kind of like a radioactive isotope in that way. But it allows you to cast really strong spells. So those who use corrupt magic become very powerful. And those are usually the bad wizards. But it's very dangerous. And the corrupt magic is indeed the remnant of the murder god. And that corrupt magic is also called Mordeus. And then the regular magic is called quintessence. It is the first element. The quintessential essence. Quintessence. And quintessence, as it turns out, is basically dust from dead gods. Because we're super metal, as somebody in chat just said. Bookworm. So, just like the gods absorb magic through the power of their worshippers, when they die or when they are forgotten, and importantly this is forgotten, they're not generally killed. Mordeus is like the only god that's ever been killed, but if they get forgotten, then they basically slumber in the world somewhere, and then their bodies start to decompose, and then the magic is released, or their bodies get mined. And that's how you get solid magic, and then it's basically the solid magic material which is used in enchanting. So there you go. So what do we want to resolve today? Well, I would quite like to work out the early timeline. So maybe some of the early tribes. The other thing I have is this thing called microscope, which will suggest it to me as a generator for events happening. So we can basically determine a number of different nations, then run microscope on it, and that will give us some events, like certain item is found with this revolutionary capabilities, or there is a certain ruler that does certain things, and it should allow us to add a little bit more oomph and a little bit more actual history to the nations we create. But we need to create the various nations. So I think early on we need to decide where exactly the different factions are. Would they be in a centralized place? Would they be fairly decentralized, spread out? Would they be nomadic? Like, we're talking Neolithic level here. So yeah, that is what we need to work out. Start with the genies. Everything starts with the genies. They are kind of the cornerstone faction here. So what do we call the genies? What is the precursor race called? What is their civilization like? Are they based off of any real civilizations? I don't really want to make them Roman, because I feel like everyone and their dog says, oh yeah, there was this Roman-like nation that died out, and then everyone else is kind of based on them. They don't even need to be a central nation. They could be a split. And actually, if the precursors had different realms, that could well be the origin of some of the other stuff. Yeah, that's true. Sumerian. The genies were more like the Sumerians, although apparently the Sumerians were more like city-states rather than a nation. I was talking to some of my friends about this at the pub. So do we want them to just be a city-state? I mean, they could be. It would just be a bloody big city-state. But then in that case, why were there so many, like, out here and out here? Because remember, it's the humans that kind of live in this coast, I would say, who survived. I would say that pretty much everything here died, because it's too close to the center of the explosion. Humans were on this coast. Probably kind of in this gap here. And then just behind that we would have the elves. I'd also like to see a concentration of humans kind of up here, caught on the side of the blast. Could even put the elves further north. We could have the elves being up here and then the humans kind of out here. With whatever out here. Nomadic people, no, they need to be a centralized city-state. Or, sorry, not a city-state, they need to be a centralized state. Or a state. Because what I'd like to have is basically Mordius is absorbing the genies for a portion of his power. Part of the reason the genies were so important to Mordius is they were probably his worshippers. Mordius was their prime god. So if we go back to World Anvil, we need to establish some of these things. So the beginning... No, races? Origins? This isn't really origins. This is the precursor. Let's start a new article. So we're going to say they are Sumerian Babylonian. In style, Mordius was their prime god. So, can I find anything out about Babylon? Lies in the centre of Iraq. Yeah, thanks, but where? Like there? This isn't a very useful map. Whoops, didn't mean to actually close that. Google, failing. What? Looking to see where it is. Like here it shows. But if you open this, the dots disappear. Yeah, it's where the two rivers come closer. So it's here. So we probably want... I'm wondering if it is going to be useful for us to have an idea of the geography of this place before the explosion. I think it will be. So this has not been changed. We are going to save a new one. And we're going to copy over World Before Disaster, because I think we started doing that, and it's an older version of this. So, the world before the disaster. We are going to need to add some terrain. Classic. There we go. Just using these hexes, and later on we will get like a real map made. It's just a lot easier to work with hexes. Babylon was a river valley civilization, so maybe a river valley somewhere. I think that would make sense, and especially if this is lower ground. That's part of the reason why it got flooded. Because what probably happened is this was a big plain. In fact, I think that's somewhat like what happened to the Baltic. I think the Baltic Sea actually started as a depression where a glacier sat. And then it eventually eroded, or rather the North Sea eventually eroded through and then flooded the Baltic. I think it was something like that. I'm pretty sure it was the Baltic as well. The Baltic is surprisingly deep. No, Doggerland was off of England, which connected to Norway? Yeah, it might well have been Doggerland. Turn the music down a little bit. A little bit too dominant. How was the Baltic Sea formed? It was a sedimentary basin formed on top of the East European craton millions of years after it consolidated. Which means what? Exactly. What is a craton? So yeah, it was a series of interconnected rifts. It was a thing that was deep that flooded. Massive ice sheet on top of it. That's what pressed the ground down. Black Sea gets brought up more. Interesting. Gratons are the largest single bit of rock. They stick together to make continents. Ah, okay. Is that southern Sweden? No, that's... I don't know what Mount Billingen is. Haven't been reading closely enough, clearly. Yeah, see, it was a lake. Lake was around for 10,000 years when a new connection to the ocean was created. Seems like it was the middle of the continent and such got squished by the tectonic forces that folded in their way. That instead of mountains have got ocean. Yeah, it's the opposite to the Alps. The Alps isn't actually on a fault line. It's just where the continents are kind of rippled together because of pressure. The Alps is just a ripple. Same as the Carpathians. Like this whole line. It's just a ripple. So apparently both the Aegean and the Black Sea started as both inland large lakes until they both spilled out into the Mediterranean. The top of the Alps is actually African soil. Really? Interesting. Well, either way, I still think that for our purposes, it's a glacier. So we're going to have glaciation moving southwards, which is also a carve to these mountains. So this whole section here was probably one big glacier, with the mountains being on the edges where it was pushed aside. And then the glacier receded, leaving ground which was compressed. Explosion happened, which just widened that. And then something, maybe part of the explosion, is what blew this up. So some of it was channeled down this way where there was a thin land block. Like, part of the reason why I like that this is angled this way is when this blew up, the water washed against here. And then because it was blocked by the mountains, it basically formed a massive tidal wave, which then inundated all of this. And that's why it extends out a lot further this way than it does that way. So this had to have been a lake initially. So maybe the capital of the genies was either a peninsula with rivers coming down from the mountains, or it was an island. Could have been like an Orkney type situation. Orkney being one of the oldest religious sites in the world. Best bet is like Doggerland. There was a coastal plain and a tsunami drowned it. Yeah, that also interesting. So Doggerland used to be a connection between the UK and the continent. It was a swampland. It was quite low land with swamps and rivers and things running through it. But it was possible. That's how humans got to England. Until a mountain mudslide in Norway happened, which caused a tsunami which inundated Doggerland and completely washed it away, turning the UK into an island. Landslide, not a mudslide. Okay, so, well, first thing that we can establish is that these mountains were bigger. Oops. Mountain. That's the one I wanted. So the Shield Mountains came right down here. Meaning that this stuff back here... Actually, you know what I would like to do? Is those bits of connections. I'm going to use different colour models so we can see exactly what changes. Kind of wish I could make this a different colour, like tinted a different colour, but never mind. So this whole area was just bigger. Only a little though. You know what, I don't need that bit. That's still fine. And I wonder if kind of like this, if there would actually be another rain shadow, that would suggest that a lot of the weather comes from up here. Try and Google Nan Madol. Could be something like that. An ancient kingdom in Asia built on an island where they build massive things in the water with massive stone blocks. Let's have a look. Archaeological site adjacent to the north shore of Ponai, part of the Madolnwe district of Pohnpei State in the Federated States of Micronesia in the Western Pacific. Constructed in a lagoon, consists of a series of small artificial islands linked by a network of canals. So it's like Tenochtitlan. That one. Which was the same thing. It was built in a lagoon with canals. Because it was actually built in... Yeah, see, it's an island. That's actually a pretty good model. I quite like that. That or the plane was already below sea level with the oceans only held back by magic. The explosion blasted through the magic sea walls. I mean, I still prefer that. I don't really want magic to play such a big role at this stage. Would be such a cool place to explore as an adventuring party. Yeah, the only problem is it would be underwater. But it would be, for sure. If you find a way of, you know, water breathing or something like that, an underwater subterranean ruin would be kind of cool. Tenochtitlan's land reclamation involved large wooden rafts upon which soil was heaped and then sunk, if I recall correctly. Correct, yes. Now, another question that we do have is, what kind of scale is this map actually on? Like, would a city be in one of these hexes, or would it be multiple? Four square miles. And I was thinking that each of those tiles would probably be about 5 miles. So a party would be able to go in flatlands about 6 of these tiles a day. 30 miles, if they're mounted. I think that's reasonable. So how long would it take going through the desert? Say you start there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 3 days already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 days. 5 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 days. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would take you about a week to get through the desert. And that is basically what I was expecting. So yeah. I think each one of these tiles is about 5 miles. So one tile would be one decent-sized city. Is there a city symbol? Yes. Yes, there is. So then if we say that the capital is right there. And we're just going to say that the explosion was that. And we're going to turn these into farmland. Huzzah! Just to show where it is. Well, in fact, we know where the centre of the explosion is because the city's there. Except we kind of want this on an island, don't we? So this is going to be the inland sea. Would it literally just be one tile? So we would have hills in front of the mountains. How far out do they go? Trying to find a hill tile I've not actually used yet. Here's one. So these are all the new hills. And that would go down to... Would the hills go straight to the ocean? Possibly. I think we probably want something like this to be filled with the hills. Except I just realised that these are forested hills, which I don't think this would be. This is what I meant it to be. And again, I'm trying to use different colours so we can see a bit better at a glance what happened and where. Cliffs on the ocean are always pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm thinking that this is kind of like the English South Downs. Although they lead to a much taller mountain range. So then the hills would stop around here. Then in front of that, do we have a dry desert area? Because what I'm kind of thinking at the moment is if their capital was kind of in a delta. So if we had land all around here with rivers kind of flowing past it. Then it would make a bit more sense why the town was there, because if it's in the middle of an island, we're talking about early technology, it's going to be hard to get out to that. Dry grassland punctured by rivers, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And it's then those rivers which are feeding this inland sea. The problem with this, thinking of physics, is the center of this blast should really be more like here. Because then we can have a more significant body of water behind it, which is what slams against the mountains, and then tidal tsunamis back this way. Otherwise, a large part of the lake is going to be over here. Or maybe we put it, like, there. Maybe the mountain itself was further out into the ocean and the center of the blast actually broke off parts of the mountain, which in turn helped create the tidal wave. That's true. We could have the mountain go out to, like, here, kind of a little bit of a triangle. Be more of a Vancouver then, with the mountains right behind the city. But again, where's that big body of water come from? A big body of water is kind of important to explain. Well, it's not actually that important in explaining this. This can just be lower ground that just got saturated. It doesn't have to be the tsunami. The tsunami in the most important place would be here. World Building Wednesday. That's what we're doing. How long after the blast is this set? Undetermined yet. You need a big sediment-filled river like the Nile or the Mississippi to build a large delta. Yeah, and I think you can get a lot of sediment from the hills and the mountains. I don't think that developing that's going to be so much of a problem. So we aren't looking at the actual impact of him falling, actually creating a massive area and it subsequently flooding. We are. It's what makes everything worse. Itchy beard. Yeah. Right. I want to see the original map again. World Origin 3. This is what we're looking at. So the water broke through there. See, that's the force. This is what happened. I'm kind of wondering if we should move the crater down to here. And then basically the water that slammed against this is what tsunamied and came down this way. This just kind of filled in. This was already low. This is where the glacier was. I think I prefer that. I think I prefer if the nucleus of the explosion was here. Maybe even a little further south. Maybe like here. Might explain why this indented, because this is where the river... No, I want the river coming down this way. Come from the mountains. That's the source. Yeah, I think it does make more sense for it to be there. So if we put it, say... Is that not working? There. And we get the ocean, and we just fill this in again. So that's now the center of this explosion. How do I clear you? Like so. I think that makes more sense, because then, boom, water shoots down that way, so this area at least needs to be ocean, or it needs to be the lake. So then if we reduce the amount of hills in here, we could say that this is kind of a... Let's use the deep ocean for the river. So if we have a river coming down this way, and maybe a river coming down this way, then something of a lake back here, like make this into a bit of a delta. I don't like that either. River can also flow parallel to the mountains, build up in the delta. Yeah, something in here. I mean, if that happened, it would probably be more like over here. So what I'm thinking at the moment is that the lake would actually be in something like this. That's not very much water, though. You need a pretty bulky set of water to smash your way through these mountains. Although the force of the explosion can of course help with that. Depends on how deep the lake is. Yeah, that's true. Maybe the city was some kind of bridge between the mountains and the land bridge further south that broke with the event. So you're saying that the city was actually in here? And is what turned this low-lying marsh, which is still there, and broke through here, opening all of this up, which then got flooded. Doesn't look like such a grandiose explosion at that point, though. I think we're getting too far away. Like, part of the reason this explosion was over here was because it kind of explained this whole crater area. I think we're looking too small. I don't like that city's there right now. I think that's silly. Let's put it back to where it was. Now I just need to remember what that was. So it points out pretty much directly at it. So it was over here. How many tiles? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the northern end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's about there. Oh no, that's horrible. Can't see what's under it. Let's just make it farmland. There we go. Highlighted. With an explosion that size, you could also be flattening entire mountain ranges in the centre. That's true, you could. So one thing which I definitely do like is that this was probably, at that point, marshland. This was already low-lying. And part of what happened with the explosion is that water pushed south, saturated this, washed it away, and then that's what created the opening. So at the very least, the lake, and this is feeling a lot better, should be about this extent. Oop, did I just do too many? That's fine. And I feel like that's a much better lake area. If we make the lake go here. And then this is an island. We can make the island bigger. That's not a problem. I feel like it probably would have been something like this. Maybe even... Well, tectonically speaking, how would that have formed? Why is there an island in the middle of this? Volcano? I quite like that idea. Okay. So if we say that there actually was... In that case, this mountain might well have gone out like something like this. Maybe part of a chain that came down this way. No, don't like that. I feel like this island's too big if it was a volcano. Doesn't need to be a tall island, no, and I don't think it should be a tall island. Entire island, inland lake could be the remnants of an ancient volcano that erupted and collapsed like we see in many places. Yeah, so it'd be like Yellowstone. It's a giant caldera. I think that's probably the most likely. Man, that would be a flipping huge volcano, but that's not unrealistic. So the volcano caldera would effectively have been that. Because that's basically what Indonesia is. I mean, that's kind of scary. But Indonesia is known as the Ring of Fire. I think... Is it Indonesia? Or is that a fault line? Hang on. Yeah, you see where all these are. Is that because it's a tectonic plate? Or is that because it's a supervolcano? The Ring of Fire. Plate tectonics, movement, collision, destruction of the lithospheric plates. Oh, that's much bigger than I meant. Okay, that's not the Ring of Fire. I'm specifically talking about Indonesia. Hawaii, Canaries, and Yellowstone are hotspots. Yes. But I think that's because Yellowstone is the center of a supervolcano. Oops, I can't spell today. Nope, don't mean that either. Give me the wiki page. I find it easiest to digest. Yellowstone National Park spans an area which is massive, comprising lakes, canyons, rivers, mountain ranges. Yellowstone Lake is one of the largest high-elevation lakes in North America and is centered on the Yellowstone caldera, the largest supervolcano on the continent. So yeah, Yellowstone is the center of a supervolcano. There you go. The first caldera, is it all of this? Kind of looks like it was. Second was a small one, third one blew its top again. Hotspots are just bubbles welling up from the mantle. No, hotspots are where there are holes in the center of a tectonic plate. So Hawaii is the best example. It's just a hole in the Pacific plate where magma rises. How about an archipelago with the largest island being the city? Yeah, we're getting bogged down a little bit too much here by tectonics, I think. I wanted to do more about nation building rather than just geology. But we need to establish this so we can see what the map was like before we can actually do any of the nation building. So we have established that this was an inland sea, a large lake. And what I'm actually kind of thinking is if we had the mountains coming out more like this. Virtually backing onto the city, maybe not quite so close. Where's my hills? So we make this the hills. And the reason I do this is because what we can have is basically two giant rivers coming along here from the mountains, spilling out into this lake. Except the rivers would need to be further in. Not right on the edge. It's a silly positioning. The rivers would need to come in something like this. And the reason I say this is this could then be a sediment build-up, which would make it incredibly fertile. Because you've got all the sediment coming in from the mountains. The only problem is a bit close to the mountain range. But that doesn't necessarily need to be mountains all the way up to there. I mean, honestly, it would probably be more like... This would certainly be hills. This would probably be hills. Doesn't even need to be two rivers. It's probably two rivers, though. Make this bit marshy. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I know that this is going to say jungle. I'm just going to use the jungle as marsh because I've used the marshes pretty heavily elsewhere. So if we make this really marshy here. So would the city itself have actually been built in a marsh? That's disease central. It's a floodplain. It's not a marsh. Do I have floodplain? I'll use moss. There you go. And this is all floodplain here, where the sediments come down. It's Nile Delta. It'll just be small channels. I'm not going to prop that up with just one big bit. So there's going to be something like that. So that's why that city is there, then boom. This water gets pushed down and across. This water gets pushed up that way. I think I prefer it being a river coming from one direction. I don't like that it's in a double... It's not the Euphrates. Because what I want is this bit to be more oceany. More like this, so then it can actually push the water that way. So what if... the river came more from, like, that direction. This doesn't need to be as precise as I'm making it. I'm being a little bit pedantic here. Because after all, this is all about to get absolutely smushed. So, kind of irrelevant. There you go. There's the river. No, don't like it. It's too artificial. I think I preferred it how it was before. That looks more realistic. Thank goodness for undo. And then all of this back there is just probably forest. Let's go with that one. Again, to differentiate. Which is how the rest of the forest all grew up. I don't really care about more detail than, whoops, that. Just want to make sure that I acknowledge the fact that this is not ocean, not lakes. Might be some in there, but not a huge amount. Okay. Then... that's effectively what it looks like. And then you probably do have some rivers maybe leaking out from here into here. Probably more like Everglades. Because the Everglades are technically a river. It just moves really slowly. Kissimmee River, discharged in the vast but shallow lake Okeechobee. Yeah, it's this. Flows out there, I think. And then all of this gets filled in. Which for the moment I think I'm just going to say is farmland. Now, did we ever work out how to make a bigger paintbrush? Yes. Yes, we did. Boom. That's basically what the inland looks. We have it sorted. Let's save this. So we now know that that is the center of the kaboom. So if the capital of the genies are here, you probably do have more genies in this, which is going to be the lowland flats, where it's easy agriculture, so it's going to be an agricultural society. Actually, what would make more sense than that is that. Because just like the dwarves have a rain shadow down here, I think that this would be too. It's just that this is the most low-lying. So you have a thin strip. Whoops. Turn off the paint bucket. Here, which is kind of grassy, and then behind it, it's just desert. And then it's the desert that gets filled in. Then outside of the desert, you start getting some more of the other stuff. And there's probably a big river that goes through here. Connects all these little lakes. But then why wouldn't it flow into that? More of a savanna than a desert. Yes, you're right, it would be. There's even a button for savanna. I can do that. Boop. And then... Now, I know that this is possible. I haven't really played with this tool, though. Shapes. Curve. Kind of. How do I choose what color it is? River. That's how I choose what color it is. So we have a river that basically goes... Is that doing anything? From there. This is not doing anything. Oh, yes it was. Ah, without being able to scroll around, this becomes very difficult. How do I get rid of that? Horrible. Horrible. There we go. Why does it keep... No! What's it connecting to? Stop. No more connections, okay? Okay. Oh, for Pete's sake! Right, we're going to go all the way back until the terrain thing's gone. Paint bucket's still on. Savannah here. Some of the tools in this program just make no flipping sense. Shapes. River. Sorry if I'm asking something stupid, but where are your rivers? That's what I want to know too. I'm trying to draw them, but they're not working. Am I drawing anything? It doesn't feel like I am. Oh, it's a vaguely understand. No, I don't understand. The problem is those dots don't appear anywhere. Ah, now where they are. There you go, there's a river. So the river would vaguely run kind of like that. I mean, it would be a bit more swirly. I feel like it would actually probably go in this way. Maybe it comes around the back. Which would rather suggest that all of this was probably... Well, that's one massive marsh. No, I don't like that it ends here. This marsh doesn't exist at this point. So this river... No. Yes. Yeah, there you go. Something like that. And then we have this river here, which I'm now going to draw out properly. Which does that, and then we go for terrain, we go farmland. That's not quite what I meant to do because we still have a paint bucket on. Also, that's not farmland, it's moss. There we go. I mean, it's possible that there were lakes in here, but it wouldn't have been this big. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the savannah bucket and go boop and boop, boop and boop and boop and boop. That's not the boop, that's the boop. There we go, just to get rid of the marshes. So yeah, there's a couple of lakes down here. Maybe. No, not maybe. A few little lowlands, perhaps. There you go. That's a better representation. Which is why all of this gets inundated, just that this is a little bit higher up. Water flows downhill, which generally means towards the sea, but weirdos like the Niger River exist. Yeah, the Niger River is... it sweeps way inland. That. Actually harder to see here. There you go. That's the source, and it goes... whoop. Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to go towards the sea. I know that because of all of my Vikings in America campaigns. Not in America, in Africa. Vikings in Africa campaigns. It's like, where are you going? You need many more rivers. I know, but I'm not that concerned about rivers at this point. So the whole point of this is to just give a bit of a better idea of what happened in the precursor area before this happens, and it all becomes one giant inland lake. And that's just so we can determine, right, the precursor nation was based here, with probably some scattered settlements up here, and then maybe a couple in the foothills. So around the edge of this lake, it's a lake-going civilization, is effectively what we're saying. So specific details about where the rivers are, don't really care. This is purely to say this is probably the further extent of the precursors. So whatever else is up here, because rivers do make nice boundaries. And I also need to get rid of these bits. They should be hills with grassland. There. There. And then that little bit needs to be not paint bucket and needs to be mountains. There we are. So that's what that looks like. I like it. And then when big boom happens, water is pushed this way, smashes its way through the mountain here, smashes down, causes this marsh to get completely flooded, opening an entrance to the main ocean, which is out here. And then the water which slams against the shield mountains basically gets turned over, formed into a tsunami, and then that's the result. Beautiful. That to me makes sense, physics-wise. So we still have a river that runs around here, and actually from this it probably comes out there, not so far south. In fact, the river is probably not even connecting through this. The river probably comes from up here. Goes out this way. Because I don't really want there to be a water connection from this to this. Unless this is an inland lake, which is possible, or an inland sea. Then why would this channel not have expanded? Because rivers don't generally connect oceans, right? Or seas. Rivers connect lakes. Otherwise you get more ocean. It erodes. That's what water does. So it was a larger city-state that held dominion over the savannah polities. Yes, that's exactly what it was. So we have the main settlement there. And then if we just go and, as an example, go back to the features, choose one of the smaller settlements, we can say that there were settlements elsewhere. So let's go ahead and place some of them. Do we want to give some more features to the savannah? Do we care enough? I'm going to say probably not. So I'm going to say that there was probably a settlement there. There was probably one in here. Or maybe in the mountain, in the hills. Or on the peninsula, easier to protect. Say there was one there. That should be closed in at this point. And the main reason I'm doing this is in case these are the beginnings of tribes. Now we do want something which is up near the mountains, because that's basically what the gnomes do. So the gnomish territory is probably this, which will be mining. So that's probably one of the biggest populations. They'd be selling ores and things to them. There might even be using the river for that. In which case, they'd be more likely to be there. Let's say they're there. And then we have got forests here. There probably is a settlement there because it would be a stopover going south. And then maybe one here leading to the woods. Which would be pretty much the furthest south you would go. Maybe there. And there probably would actually be a few on the coast. And then would there be anything leading to the Great River back here? Because I'm thinking maybe we put the elves on the river. Roughly. Future elves. No, because that would be the... Yeah, there should be something back here. Because remember, all of this is going to get swamped. The only one that kind of survives is that guy. That's not true, actually. You survive. Which would actually kind of suggest the humans are down here. See, this is why this is important. Because that's this. That survives. And it's close enough to the center of the explosion to have the magic eroded out of them. Which really does suggest it's the humans down here. And then it's the elves along this river back here, with the savannah mostly flooded. Whoops. Oh no, don't do that. Now that's interesting, because I always envisioned the humans being up here. But no, I think that this is the elven territory. So if we did have... that... then you would need some kind of trade route across this. There would have been settlements all along the coast like the Levant. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Alright, we'll put in a couple more, because they don't really matter, they get swamped. The important ones here is this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Because those are going to be 3 separate human enclaves, almost. All of this gets nuked, and then we get to where the elves are, which are back here. Need a river through the savannah. Yeah. Which actually has a really interesting connotation. I always imagine this river flows south, but what if it flows north? And empties into this? So it could flow from like here. Then maybe another one that empties down here. Or from here. That's more likely. You know what? I like that a lot more. Let's go ahead. It's going to hurt me to do this. Because that river took me far too long to draw. But I think I've got a better idea of how it works now. So that river goes down to here, to here, to here. That's not what I wanted. I don't like this system. I don't like it at all. How about I just do a line? Oh my gosh, that's so much simpler. There you go. That's that river. Then we have... Whoa, don't connect that. That's done. And then we have a river which goes out here. Wraps around, because this is just where the low territories are. And goes into that. Or, better yet, why don't you just come through here? Flow in. Oops, that's not doing anything. Flows into that. Takes 3 points to do a curve. Part of the problem is it's kind of hard to see what each one does. See, why is the curve up here and not here? And then why can I draw it out after? Why can't I just do... Where's that come from? And that. Stop. Oh, for Pete's sake. Cancel! It keeps on a... No! New! Make a new thing! Oh, for Pete's sake. See, the flipping dot stays there. So that's technically the third... No, there's another one here. Where are these coming from? Looks like Pete is the god of frustration. Oh, that's good. Just cancel. Just stop what you're doing. I'll click on something else. There we go. Shapes. Curve. I'm trying to learn how the curves work. So once I've clicked, can I then draw? Ah. And then enter to finish it. Click. Then click from the start point. That's how you do it. Alright, I get it. Still a stupid system, but I get it. Right, so let's try that again. So we start from here. Where the hell did that come from? Alright, deselect everything. Reselect it. Here. There we go. It goes up down here, goes up to here. Do I like that last bit? I'm not sure I do. Oops, no, don't do that. No! Pete's sake. The fact you can't cancel is infuriating. Nope, still a thing there. Oh, it didn't seem to have mattered. Yeah, I prefer it running that course. You could even have... Oh, fuck's sake. Why do you keep appearing? I've said no. We are not interested. Still there. Oh, my cunning ploy. The system has discovered it. Alright, fine, you've beaten me. We'll accept that stupid piece up the top. That's going to piss me the hell off. Alright, so that's where that one goes. And then the river that's down here goes out to this. Probably just that one. Right, we need to start a new spot. Like, please, new, okay? New river. Thank you. Yeah, straight lines. The curve thing is not fit for purpose. I think I had you kind of coming around that way. Alright, so we know where those rivers are. I don't think that any rivers would be going across the savannah based on this. The only bit maybe is down here. Although I think that's more of just an artifact of this. I mean, this lake still exists. Somewhat reduced in size. That's this. So this is the deepest bit. Would you really go all the way around like this, though? Remember, you can always have indirect basins, which is geologist for watersheds that don't follow the ocean. True. I mean, it's kind of what this one is. It just empties into a lake. And when it's all done, no one will even know about that river. I mean, these two rivers probably still exist. This is the one that doesn't. Because remember, these are on the outer rim. They are here. And here. One hex is 5 miles. Which is why a city is just 1 tile. Because at this point... So you tried to do that game. Right, I'm going to get away from that tool. I'm going to go back to the terrain tool. I understand this one. Dead forest, just like my soul right now. So, this savannah. It's a long way across. You would have needed some really adventurous people to go out there. And with... I mean, we can always add... Here's the thing. We've just kind of filled this. This is not necessarily just that. There could be a lake system in here somewhere. Maybe in the centre where it would be deepest. So if we put like a lake in here... You could even have it being fed from these mountains, which is then how people got to this. Going across that is a lot shorter than going all the way across. Especially because... use for the heavy forest? That one. This would actually probably have been woodland. Thick heavy forest up there. At least for some of it. And then if the least forest was here, then they probably would have just followed the plains. Clicking straight lines with vertices close together is so much easier than the automatic curves of this tool. Yeah, which is annoying because the curves look good. But you can't, like, tweak them. So yeah, fine if it has a 3-point curve. I get how that works. But you can't adjust where the curve is, so you have no idea where it's going to go. None. And especially because you can't detach the tool. Like, wherever you click last is where it's going to be starting next time you use the tool again. It's a ridiculous tool. It's terrible. It's not a tool. It's a madness. It's not a desert, so any water and you have an easily crossable land. I mean, what I'm actually kind of thinking at the moment, it's a savanna, so it's not that watered. It's like the Serengeti. I'm actually kind of thinking that instead of the... well, wouldn't even need to be instead of. You could have a river going out this way, which is what fills in here. Then what stops this going into that? Well, it could be like a couple of hills or something here. Nothing really tall, but hills would do. Which would be interesting, because in this world, you'd have a little area of shallows. Like a barrier reef. What we should do is check the geographic map of Mongolia. Yeah. That's true. Did evolve in Savannah. What was that? Image coming soon. Great. I know there's an area which is considered like the first area. See, I don't think Mongolia is that useful because I'm not sure that, like, horses probably haven't been domesticated at this point. And Mongolia was only really crossable when you had horses, same with steppes. Great Rift Valley, thank you. Kenya. Was it Great Rift Valley? The Great Rift Valley is a bloody huge area. There we go. Oh, you mean for the rivers, lakes, plains ratios? Yeah, you have mountains on the flanks, you have rivers coming in, going to that lake, which I think is where Irkutsk is, isn't it? And then yeah, the Gobi Desert back here, which is the tough bit.
Raiding party!
Hey, Templin Institute, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome to the stream. How are you guys doing? Hope you're having a good day so far. We are currently working on building our own setting for a potential D&D game in the future. And this is roughly what we're coming up with, or rather, this is roughly what we're coming up with. But we're doing some ancient history on determining how exactly this inland sea came to be. And it started out with a little thing like this and a big magical explosion. Boom. When one of the gods decided to get a bit too powerful, and all the other gods went and shanked him. And with the big god explosion death, this lake here got spread out. Large tidal wave slammed against this mountain range, which then pushed out that way, inundating all of this, and also breaking the small land bridge, like Dogger land here, flooding that, eroding it, and then making that an actual access to the ocean, which then helped flood the rest. So what you're looking at is zoomed in like this. And now we're trying to work out where the elves, dwarves, and gnomes are from. So the gnomes are from the mountains. They basically took refuge in the mountains after the fallout. The humans, as it turns out, were the ones that were nearest the blast. The humans are probably down here. So this would be the human homeland, interestingly. And probably this side. Probably more here. Because I want to have lots and lots of conflict over this region. So the most secure human area would be here. Which would also mean you'd have the orc attacks coming in from the sea. The orcs are maritime in this. And then the elves are out here. And we're trying to work out the geology of what happened with this. Because this was one big savanna. And we're wondering how on earth the precursors went from their capital, which is here, between two big rivers, very, very like Alexandria type area, across the savannah to these rivers back here, which is where the elven homeland will be. Because basically when the god exploded, there was one race in this area which were effectively genies, which we're calling the precursors. The magical explosion burned out the magic from the humans, so they basically become non-magic anymore. The elves lost most of their magic, but they still retained some, so they were further away from the centre of the explosion. And then the gnomes were the closest to the explosion, hiding in the mountains, and they became very resistant to magic because they had to in order to survive that close to where the fallout was. 100 miles is not that long of a migration. It's more than 100 miles, though. So if we say that the coastal settlements are here, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. Okay, maybe it is. It's like 150. And then if we do put water here, which I'm still not convinced by. I feel like there needs to be some kind of feature in this. Because I kind of see what you're getting at now with the map of Mongolia. That there's a lot more features, even if it's one of the considered relatively flat areas. There's mountains over here, there's rivers snaking off to the north, and then this is the flat bit. And make sure the rivers make sense. I mean, that's what we're kind of working on. We want the outer river rim, where the elves are mostly clustered, to make sense, and we want it to make sense that they would have got there. Like, what would make them set off across this savannah? Because what we can do is we can move this river, instead of filling into here, we can have these mountains flooding into that lake instead of river coming out this way. So then there's a bit of an oasis type thing. And in fact, rivers don't even need to end at lakes, do they? The only thing I don't want is for the river to empty into... Well, why wouldn't it empty into here? It could. It would actually make the most sense if it did. Alright. We're going in again. You. Delete. You. Delete. There we go. Line, because we're not touching the curve one again. So it would kind of make sense if the river kind of went through here. And maybe kind of loops around and ends up down here. Making this navigable up to there. And then once you get to here, you're in interesting territory. You can strike out for the mountains because the landmarks you can go and find. Then once you find these mountains, you find this river and you go north. That makes more sense. I like that more. And then I think I'm also going to say that there is a river coming from these mountains, probably where this marshland is. From deep... Whoa, no, don't do that. I didn't just delete the whole thing, did it? No. Right, I'm going to go and click on another button, so hopefully we reset the river. Stupid tool. Because what we want is from in here... Oops, you're not doing anything. River, there we go. To do that. Now we have the outer rim of where the elves are. That makes more sense to me. And it becomes just a heck of a lot wilder as you get further back. I mean, at some point we will transform this to make more sense. Like, I still think that the area that makes the most sense to me and looks the most realistic is actually this bit. Good old Dwarven homeland. And this internal bit I don't care as much about. We just need to know how people get from A to B, and if there is a river, a navigable river here, then that's what they use. That also means that this settlement was at some point really important, which probably also means that this settlement was quite important. So you've got the ores coming in from here to here, and then trading out to these guys. And then this one, being at the head of the river, means that these two would have been a lot smaller. Though, of course, all of this gets flooded, so it doesn't matter as much. Also makes sense as a path for the precursors to travel inland. Nice big river to follow. Yeah, exactly. I needed them to have a reason to go through the savannah. Otherwise, it's just a hell of a lot easier to colonize all of this. And they did, which is why there's a big human population down here. And we'll have kind of the safer, more secure humans. These probably be like your France, your Germany over on this side. And then the ones which are at the edge of cultures would be over here. Poland. This one's the breadbasket. This is where much of the food for all of these guys comes from. Like, I don't want this to be massively fertile. That's why it's savanna, not grassland. And probably the next most fertile area would be down here. Although, getting warmer. So, the other place where there could be humans would be up here. And again, I can make that make sense. by bringing in a river. Goes around like that. So then those who travelled up this way could have then followed that river and established a settlement up here. Possibly even trying to cross this, because it's a heck of a lot quicker than going all the way around. Because they know it exists. So it would suggest to me that there's another settlement here. And possibly even one up here. And then we have the Elven settlements. I would say there's almost certainly one here. There's almost certainly one here. Because this is the crossing between the two rivers. Are these human-elf gnome precursors, or are they diverged yet? No, these are the precursors. We're just saying that eventually those who settled here survived the flood. This is where the elves are. I would like there to be a little human enclave up here, which will then be different from these guys. And then in here we have the gnomes. Although, actually, this could also be elves. It's far enough away that it's more likely to be elves. This is, again, human. Oh, heck, this could even be like halflings. It's different enough. No, it'd still be elves. Still be elves. So this is the elven area here. They didn't really head south into this. No real landmarks for them to aim for. Like, the thing that I like about having the mountains is these landmarks. You go, okay, there's mountains over there. What's over there? Don't forget that a big explosion of this magnitude would make earthquakes so big it would change the topography drastically. That's true. Gotta head off to bed. Yeah, it's 3 AM. I've been going for an hour longer than I had meant to. So I think I'll probably call it here as well. Has this song just been on repeat? No, it hasn't. Just heard it once or twice. I like this. This is a good start. What would humans be in this period? Primitive. Humans don't exist. This is all genies. All of this is genie. After this happens, then there would be primitive human. Yes. I think they would have some technology, so it would be like Bronze Age, most likely. So they probably go from something... They probably go from iron back to bronze, and then advance from bronze. We would need to decide exactly when this happens. Like, that part of the timeline, I'm not very au fait on it yet. So fun, hope you do it again soon. Every week, every Wednesday. 1 AM, straight after the EU4 game. Well, not even after. The last hour of the EU4 game is this. Anyway, I think that is going to be enough. So thank you, everyone, for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, be sure to hit that follow button so you get notifications when I'm live again in the future. If you've really enjoyed this and you would like to support the channel and everything I do, then please do consider subscribing. Helps the channel out and lets me do more of this kind of content. If you would like to support the channel in other ways, check out the Patreon, which I've got at patreon.com/MordredViking. As has been hinted, this may well become a D&D game in the future, and if you would like to see the channel where that would be hosted, you can head over to Digital Dragons, which is where we play D&D every Sunday, although I must say this Sunday we are off, so there's no game this Sunday. But we're going to go and raid Digital Dragons GM, which is the channel for that. Just so you can head over there and then hit that follow button if you are interested in seeing some Dungeons & Dragons stuff, which is hosted by me. I'm the DM at the moment, and we are currently playing through Icewind Dale, as you can see from the thumbnail down there. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. head on over to Dragon's GM. Obviously they're not live because we're not playing this evening, but just hit that follow button and then you'll get the notifications when we are. Every Sunday, midnight GMT until about 3 AM. And those videos are uploaded onto my YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/MordredViking. And we just had our 50th session of Icewind Dale. So we are pretty deep into that campaign, but it's a bloody good one so far. And I would very much encourage you to come join us. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks everyone. See you all later. Bye bye.